particularly in the South China Sea or the East Sea. We're deeply concerned that China has taken a number of aggressive moves that we think are deeply unsettling in the region and that we think are carried out in ways that are contrary to international law. The United States of America continues to believe that all disputes in the South China Sea need to be resolved peacefully and in accordance with international law. We think all claims need to be based in international law. We think that there should be unimpeded commerce and freedom of navigation and overflight respected throughout the South China Sea. We've also spoken out very forcefully against China's aggressive moves to impede the longstanding energy exploration and development activities of countries in the region, including Vietnam. Our general policy on the South China Sea involves three primary lines of effort. One, in terms of our diplomacy, we work with like-minded partners like Vietnam and other friends in ASEAN and other allies, partners, and friends in the region to advance the shared principles that I've just mentioned. Focus on international law, peaceful resolution of disputes, freedom of navigation, unimpeded commerce. Secondly, we work diligently to improve and enhance and increase the maritime capacity of partner countries like Vietnam, but not just Vietnam, also Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, and others. Again, it's our belief that if every country in the region, including Vietnam, has the ability to understand what's happening in its maritime domain and to defend its interests, that will contribute to stability and it will raise the threshold to conflict, thereby making conflict less likely. And thirdly, the United States of America continues to invest in our own military capabilities and carry out our own military activities on a regular basis designed to enforce our rights under international law and thereby protect those rights for all other countries. And that's why you'll continue to see regular freedom of navigation operations and other routine operations in the South China Sea. So these issues in the maritime realm, particularly in the South China Sea, are very important. We're deeply concerned, as is much of the region, over Chinese aggressive behavior. And we believe through the policy and the strategy that I've just outlined that we can contribute to stability and prevent conflict in the region, and that is our goal.
And before I call on the next report, I also want to say if any members of Congress have anything to chime in, please feel free to. So next I have the Daily News.
Yeah, very quick one. The matter of human rights has been harshly there. Okay, but human rights guys like Duncan Yiduk and Michael Nguyen, have you ever personally visited with them, and how are they now?
I have not met personally with Michael Nguyen, but my staff meets with him regularly and up to date has met monthly and sometimes more frequently with him. What was the first case that you mentioned?
Duncan Yiduk.
Okay, so I've not met with that person. I don't know if I'm familiar with the details of that case. I'd be happy to learn more, but let me just emphasize a couple of the points that I made in the town hall. First of all, we're committed to advocating aggressively for the rights of American citizens in Vietnam, including those who have been detained, such as Michael Nguyen. I was honored to meet with his wife, Helen, their 4 daughters, and other members of the family today. I remain grateful for all of the strong support and collaboration from the members of Congress who are here today. And as we discussed in the town hall, we're going to do everything we can to bring Michael home as quickly as possible. As I also mentioned in the town hall, our strategy on human rights is twofold. We continue to advocate for individual cases. I carry with me a card in my wallet that has some of our top priority individual cases. We advocate on their behalf for improved treatment for Vietnam to respect its own laws and to respect the universal rights of these individuals. We've had some success, but the fact that we have this list and I carry this card shows that we have a long way to go, and there are many problems in Vietnam. And I think, as Representative Lowenthal laid out, I think the biggest concern we have is that the number of arrests, detentions, harassment, and jailing of activists has increased over the last 4 years, and we're deeply concerned about that. Second, we would also advocate for systemic legal and regulatory reform in Vietnam as well to improve the situation.
May I come up there and take a snapshot of your card? You've been talking about that card over and over again.
We can do that later.
Yeah.
Now, next question is nhà báo Lý Kim Trúc.
Good afternoon, sir. And my name is Kim Trúc Lý, editor-in-chief of Vietnamese Văn hóa Online, California. I have some questions for the ambassador to Vietnam, Sir Daniel Kritenbrink. I speak language Vietnamese and English. And question.
Dạ, chú đọc bây giờ chú đọc
The one question.
dạ, chú đọc tiếng
Sự kiện diễn ra ở khu vực bãi tư chính hồi đầu tháng 7 cho thấy dường như có sự thiếu sót về tình báo về sự xâm nhập của tàu HB Trung Quốc đến thâm nhập vào bãi biển Việt Nam. Theo đại sứ thì khu vực bãi tư chính đó nằm trong vòng 200 hải lý của Việt Nam hay nằm ngoài vùng biển quốc tế?
Yes.
No,
just one question at a time, please. So the question is, what happened at the Vanguard Bank at the beginning of July 2019 proved that there was no communication on the intelligence concerning Chinese ships openly and defiantly came into the region to look for oil. How do you think about, or what do you think about the Vanguard Bank? Is it part of Vietnam's 200 nautical mile economic privileges, or does it belong to international waters?
Thank you for your question. We're very concerned about the situation at Vanguard Bank. As I mentioned in my remarks a short while ago, we continue to remain concerned with Chinese behavior that is clearly designed to impede Vietnam's long-standing energy exploration and development activities, including at Vanguard Bank. We think it's unacceptable for China to take such action. We think that Chinese actions are designed to prevent countries of Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, from accessing trillions of dollars worth of resources in the South China Sea. We also think that Chinese action is designed to intimidate international energy companies out of the South China Sea and thereby force claimant countries, including Vietnam, to partner with only Chinese companies. We think this is unacceptable behavior. We've stated so publicly. We've stated so privately, both in Beijing and Hanoi and elsewhere in the region, and will continue to do so.
Okay, before I call the next report, I understand.
Number two.
Oh no, that's not number two. Please have a seat. I know, understand that members of Congress, a few members of Congress have to leave. Thank you, Congresswoman Katie Porter, and thank you, Congressman Hollywood for being here. So I'm going to go
One comment before our members of Congress. I just want to thank them all again. Your members of Congress today made this opportunity available for me to meet with you. I'm very grateful to them. I've learned so much through this interaction, and I just wanted to, again, to thank Representative Lowenthal, Representative Porter, Representative Ruda for organizing this opportunity. It's been tremendously useful to me. Thank you all. I look forward to continuing to partner with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we go to Derek for the next question.
Derek Phạm và nửa vòng chết TV San Diego. Cộng đồng Việt Nam vẫn quan tâm rất nhiều đến nghĩa trang quân đội Biên Hòa cũ là nghĩa trang Bình An bây giờ đó, và họ không có nhiều thông tin về cái việc là chính quyền Việt Nam có dễ dàng hay khó khăn cho cái việc mà người thân ở tại Hoa Kỳ về thăm viếng và tu sửa hay không. Thì riêng ông đại sứ, ông có biết về điều này, ông có thể chia sẻ với đồng hương ở đây.
So the question is on the Bien Hoa military cemetery, as it's called the Bình An Cemetery now in Vietnam. A lot of the Vietnamese American overseas here, they don't have enough information to clearly understand how difficult it is or how easy it is for them to go back to the Bien Hoa military cemetery to visit graves of their relatives or to restore. So could the ambassador share what you know of what's going on with the Bien Hoa cemetery and your response to family member here wanting to make the visit there?
Thank you very much. I've had the honor of visiting Bien Hoa Cemetery twice. I was deeply moved to be able to do so. And one of the reasons why I went is to support the activities by many Vietnamese Americans to help refurbish the graves that are in Bien Hoa Cemetery to properly pay respects to all of the fallen there. I was particularly grateful to work closely with the Vietnamese American Foundation and my friend Nguyen Doc Tang in those efforts, and I'm happy to report that virtually all of the graves in the Bien Hoa Cemetery have now been refurbished, and I think conditions for the fallen soldiers there have improved dramatically. I was able to visit twice. And I know that the work on refurbishing these graves has gone forward very smoothly over the last few years. There have, of course, been challenges and concerns as well, but I think we've made tremendous progress. What I don't have clarity on is either how easy or challenging it is for individual Americans to go there to pay their respects. But I will ask that question and I will get back to you. I simply don't know, but I can say I'm happy to have been able to go twice myself. And I'm very happy to report the great work that's taken place there. That I think the conditions in the cemetery have improved considerably. Representative Lowenthal, I know you've been very active on this issue as well. I don't know if you had any comments.
I just think that the Bien Hoa Cemetery is critically important. One of the reasons, not only for the restoration of a national cemetery for those from the Republic of Vietnam who gave their lives, I think there were over 16,000 were buried here. But I think also, in my experience, that the diaspora, all of us who are here in the United States, all of you that are here in the United States, there is a definite disconnect between the Vietnamese government and the diaspora. I was hoping that the Bien Hoa Cemetery, the restoration, would lead to a restoration of the relationship between the diaspora. Because when I was in Vietnam, being honest, this was about 4 years ago, it seemed to me that the government looked at the diaspora as the enemy. There was the war, and you lost the war, and you're wrong. That attitude has to change. You know, we are all part of the international community. I think and so I'm concerned that, and I was hoping that Bien Hoa would be the vehicle by which the government would see that the diaspora, the people who are not the enemy. And so I'm just wondering how that's going in terms of that relationship between the diaspora, especially, and the government itself.
Yes, sir. Sir, I think that's a great point. I think that overall we have seen tremendous progress in terms of reconciliation between the United States and Vietnam. I think the place where the most work remains is between Vietnam and the Vietnamese American community, which I think you eloquently stated. I too believe that work on incredibly important and symbolically and emotionally important issues like the Bien Hoa Cemetery is incredibly meaningful and can have a long-term positive impact. I'm still hopeful that will be the case. I have been gratified to see that this work has taken place very quietly and very successfully, and we've been honored to support it. I do appreciate the question about how to visit there, and I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out. I will say as well, Representative Lowenthal, we continue to be interested in ways that we can further promote reconciliation between our two sides. And if you or members of the community have other ideas, we think it, as you said, it really is important. I'm hopeful that Bien Hoa will still contribute to that.
Okay. So next I have Derek Ng, followed by Andrew. So Derek Ng.
If I may sit so that I don't block the cameras behind me. My name is Derek Nguyen, representing Home Viet TV and the Saigon Radio. I would like to first thank Congressman Lowenthal for your service and for your leadership, for the opportunity today. Thanks, Paul, for providing the logistics, and thank you to Ambassador Kritenbrink for representing us well and for taking the time here today. In the town hall meeting, the one message that we have heard loud and clear was the issue of human rights and religious freedom. But in here with the press, we begin to hear of China's aggression.
Yes,
With your background experience, sir, how do you balance your work in pressuring the Vietnam government to respect the human rights and religious freedom rights, as opposed to balancing it with helping them to side with us to rise up to China's aggression?
Yes, sir. Derek, thank you very much. I think that's a fantastic question, and I appreciate your asking. What I would say is we have a comprehensive partnership with Vietnam. That's the formal designation that we've made for this relationship that we have, and I think it represents accurately what we're doing. We're engaged in so many areas together. Today in the town hall, I think we rightfully focused mostly on human rights because I think that probably best represents some of the concerns in the Vietnamese American community. But this is a broad-based relationship in which we're engaged on security, economics, energy, the environment, health, and many other issues. Much of that engagement is very positive and productive, and like any relationship, we also have challenges, problems. I would simply say that our goal in this comprehensive partnership is to do all of these things at the same time. I think it's natural in all of our relationships, whether between countries or individuals. We have commonalities and common interests, and we have differences. It's no different with Vietnam. We have a very active and productive dialogue vis-a-vis our common interests in preserving peace and stability in the region, in countering some of the threats and unproductive behavior that we see from China. And that's one of the common interests that I think helps drive our cooperation. But just because we have common interests vis-a-vis China, and just because we cooperate to counter those challenges, it doesn't preclude us from also very frankly and candidly addressing our differences. So we do both. We do them at the same time. Sometimes we even do them in the same meeting. I think it's representative of, I think, the maturity that now describes the U.S.-Vietnam relationship. We do have difficult issues. We do have a painful and at times tragic history. We don't shy away from that. I think this relationship is mature enough and advanced enough now that we can do all of these things. We can advance our cooperation together on common interests, whether it's economics and trade or security in the South China Sea, and we can continue to very candidly address our human rights differences. I'm confident we can continue to do that going forward.
Thank you. So I have ký giả đoàn Trọng and then Nguyễn Kim Bình. So ký giả đoàn Trọng.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ambassador. My name is Phong Dong. I work for the SES TV. And my shows come from Monday to Friday every morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Fantastic.
Before that, I worked in the Little Saigon TV. I worked in the Finland for the Vietnamese reporters, attending in the two summit with the president, with the Kim Jong-un and APEC. My issue, regarding about ambassador and ambassador of U.S. We are the U.S. citizen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. And we work, for the people who every single day listen to us and want to follow us by the Vietnamese language. And they are, the U.S. citizens too.
Yes, sir.
My question regarding about your lack of the relationship and the help, for the Vietnamese reporter and on the media when we do the duty in the Vietnam. My trip was there, and I compare with the old, the American, media, they treat us so much different. So only one way we can come to the foreign department of the Vietnam Socialist government, and I need your help. I need your embassy regarding about the Vietnamese media located in this area or all over in the U.S. We need to bring up all the message, all the activity, So when we come there, we come to Hanoi, we come to Da Nang for APEC. We are the embassy, help us. No one give it back to us. Now I got a good chance to meet you, and I hope you build up the relationship between the media in here to the embassy, where we can get it together. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I wasn't aware of the concerns that you mentioned. Let's make sure we exchange cards. I'd be happy to work with you. We think that all American media ought to have the opportunity to cover events in Vietnam openly and candidly, and I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you.
Nguyễn Kim Bình and then followed by Khải Đàm.
Yes, just maybe two very quick questions.
Please.
First of all, about the trip by Mr. Nguyễn Phú Trọng that was planned for last year. Do you still expect that there will be a trip this year? And second question is about the status of renegotiating the repatriation agreement between the U.S. and Vietnam. How is that going? Will that happen anytime soon?
Thank you for your question. So on the first question, in February of 2019, when President Trump visited Hanoi for the Hanoi summit with Kim Jong-un, we did have the opportunity for a series of very productive meetings with the Vietnamese leadership. The president met both with General Secretary and President Nguyen Phu Trong, and also with Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc. In his meeting with President Nguyen Phu Trong, he did invite President Chong to visit the United States. We're still hopeful. We're still hopeful that we could realize such a visit. I certainly don't have anything to announce here today, but it remains our hope that we could host a Vietnamese president in the United States someday soon, and we'll continue to work towards that. On the repatriation agreement, I assume this is related to the issue that we call the removals issue. Let me say a little bit about that. I know that this is a complex issue. I know this is an emotional issue for certain members of our community here in the United States. What I can say is this, is that my job as the American ambassador to Vietnam on this issue is when someone is identified by a U.S. immigration judge for removal from the United States and returned to Vietnam, our job at the U.S. Embassy is to request from the government of Vietnam travel documents for those individuals to be returned to Vietnam. There are more, as I understand it, there are more than 8,000 individuals, Vietnamese nationals, who've been identified for removal from the United States and returned to Vietnam, and that number has been 8,000 or so for many, many years. There have been returns taking place every year for many years. I think the rate of returns has increased slightly over the last couple of years. On the issue of the 2008 agreement and how it treats individuals who came to the United States either before or after 1995, the situation is this. The 2008 agreement formally covered the procedures that would be used to return nationals to Vietnam who had come to the United States after 1995. So that agreement does not cover anyone who came to the United States before 1995. But that agreement does not preclude the return of anyone who came to the United States prior to 1995. And the U.S. government position has always been that under international law, a government should accept for return nationals when they're identified for return by the United States. So there's nothing in those agreements that precludes the return of someone who's come to the United States before 1995. There have been returns for pre-1995 cases, and those returns do continue. There's currently no formal agreement that covers those procedures, but the returns happen nonetheless. There are discussions about the possibility of a new agreement that would cover the procedures. I don't have anything here to announce on that today, but I would say, irrespective if there is an agreement or not, the U.S. government position is that every country has a responsibility to return, to receive the return of its citizens. We do believe that it would be useful to have an agreement that would outline those procedures, but even in the absence of that agreement, there are returns that are taken.
I'd just like to follow up on that and just say that there is legislation being proposed in the Congress to codify that 2008 agreement and to deny the ability to deport anybody before 1995. That's being proposed. We do not know whether it will pass. We do not, but our delegation will be supporting it to clarify that issue, which is very unclear, and the Congress has never taken a stand on it. And so we're going to try to do that to clearly define that the intention of that, we believe, was not to